The USS Blackstar was not just another warship. It was a legend in the making even before it had fired a single shot. For years, rumors had circulated about its construction. Some called it a myth. Others whispered about secret experiments that gave humanity a weapon no enemy could match. But now there it was, appearing on the edge of a battlefield that had seen decades of war. Its hull was dark, almost black, reflecting faint starlight like liquid night. Every curve and panel of the ship seemed purposeful, designed not just for combat but to intimidate anyone who dared face it. Even from a distance, the sheer size and presence of the Blackstar made commanders pause, rethink, and in many cases feel fear they had never known before. On the bridge, the captain stood silently, observing the vast expanse of space ahead. The crew moved with calm precision, trained for months to operate the ship's complex systems. Despite the magnitude of the moment, there was no panic, no unnecessary chatter. Every eye was on the monitors, every hand ready at a station. The captain's voice, when it came, was measured and steady. "Prepare for approach," he said, and the ship's engines hummed to life. The sound was low, deep, almost like a heartbeat, as the Blackstar began its slow, deliberate advance toward the conflict zone. In the distance, the enemy fleet, an enormous armada of alien vessels, was already in motion. They had heard stories of the Blackstar, but stories rarely compared to reality. Thousands of ships, each bristling with weapons, seemed to move in perfect formation. Their confidence was palpable. They had dominated every corner of the galaxy they had entered, leaving entire star systems in ruins. And yet even their bravest commanders felt a flicker of doubt when the Blackstar appeared. There was something about the way it moved, something almost alive in its presence that suggested it would not be an easy opponent. The first sensor readings were startling. The Blackstar's shields absorbed distant attacks without flinching. Enemy scouts fired plasma bolts, testing the ship's defenses, expecting some damage or at least a warning signal. But the shields shimmered, bending light, dispersing energy, and leaving the ship entirely unharmed. Across the bridge, the crew exchanged quiet glances. This was exactly what they had trained for, yet seeing it in action was different. It was one thing to know your ship was powerful. It was another to witness it withstand assaults that could destroy entire fleets. Meanwhile, on smaller human vessels nearby, the tension was almost unbearable. Officers and crews who had fought in countless skirmishes watched the Blackstar with awe and nervous admiration. They had been trained to believe in human ingenuity, but even they had underestimated what the ship could do. Messages crackled across communication lines. "It's massive," one pilot whispered, barely able to get the words out. "Are we really seeing this?" asked another. Across the fleet, there was a shared, unspoken understanding. Today was going to change everything. Back on the Blackstar, the captain reviewed the tactical displays. Every enemy ship, every possible approach vector, every weak point in their formations was mapped in real time. The ship's advanced AI processed data faster than any human mind could, offering predictions and suggestions. But decisions, as always, rested with the captain. He studied the information, weighing the options carefully. They could strike immediately, taking advantage of the enemy's initial hesitation, or they could hold position, letting the aliens grow confident before revealing the Blackstar's full power. After a long pause, he made his choice. "Hold our course. Let them underestimate us. Let them make the first mistake." The enemy ships, sensing hesitation, moved closer. From their perspective, the humans were outnumbered, outgunned, and unprepared. The alien commanders had survived wars that humanity could scarcely imagine. They had fought in battles that destroyed entire moons and wiped out fleets larger than some cities. Confidence was their weapon, and arrogance was their shield. They believed the Blackstar was just another ship, another target to be eliminated before it could prove itself. Their formation tightened, weapon systems charged, and for a brief moment space seemed frozen in anticipation. Inside the Blackstar, every crew member was ready. The navigation officer monitored the trajectory of approaching enemy fire, ready to calculate evasive maneuvers if necessary. Weapons officers prepared the main cannons, checking coils and energy outputs. The engineering team monitored reactors, ensuring they were stable and capable of powering the ship's incredible systems. Despite the calm exterior, there was a quiet tension, a sense that everything had led to this moment. Each person aboard understood the weight of responsibility on their shoulders, not just for themselves, but for everyone watching back on Earth, for every colony that relied on humanity's survival. And then the first wave came. Thousands of alien projectiles streaked through space toward the Blackstar, a river of destructive energy meant to overwhelm and destroy. Outside the ship, the hull shimmered with the activation of the shields. The projectiles collided with the barrier and vanished in flashes of light. Not one touched the ship. Not one pierced the armor. Across enemy channels, disbelief spread. Their weapons, which had destroyed countless human and alien ships before, were ineffective. Panic began to ripple through the enemy fleet. The Blackstar was not just holding its ground, it was untouchable. The captain observed the scene calmly. "Maintain position," he ordered. The crew obeyed without hesitation. Even in moments that would terrify most, the Blackstar's team remained composed. They had trained for this, had prepared for this, and now they were executing a plan that relied on both patience and precision. The ship moved slightly, adjusting course, but never breaking formation. Every shift was calculated to keep the enemy off balance while keeping the Blackstar in a position to strike decisively when the time came. The enemy, frustrated by their inability to breach the shields, began to change tactics. Smaller strike teams broke off, attempting flanking maneuvers. Electronic interference pulses were sent to disrupt the Blackstar's systems. They had faced AI-assisted ships before, but none like this. The Blackstar's sensors detected every movement, predicted every adjustment, and allowed the crew to respond before any threat became real. With every failed attempt, the alien commanders grew more uneasy. They could feel their advantage slipping away. For the first time in generations, they were facing uncertainty in battle. As the Blackstar continued its slow advance, its presence alone began to influence the battlefield. Allied ships, previously scattered and hesitant, found renewed confidence. Pilots who had expected to fight for survival suddenly felt inspired. They knew the Blackstar could handle anything the enemy threw at it. Morale surged across human fleets. Orders were followed with renewed energy. Fighters executed maneuvers with precision, guided by the knowledge that the Blackstar was their anchor, their shield, and their spear. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. The Blackstar, moving like a shadow through the field of stars, had yet to fire a shot, yet its impact was already undeniable. Enemy ships were confused, disorganized, and increasingly cautious. Even the bravest alien commanders hesitated, their usual tactics failing. They had never encountered an opponent that could absorb attacks with such ease while remaining completely ready to respond. The Blackstar's silence was more terrifying than any weapon fire. Its reputation, built in secrecy, had come alive before the eyes of everyone in the system. And then, as the sun of a distant star glinted off the Blackstar's armor, the captain finally gave the command that would mark the beginning of a new era in the war. The ship's engines thrummed as energy gathered for the first strike. The crew worked in perfect synchronization, each movement precise, each action deliberate. Outside, the enemy fleet continued to maneuver, unaware of what was coming. And in that moment, everyone who witnessed it, human or alien, realized the truth. The USS Blackstar was not just a ship. It was a force, a symbol, and a warning that nothing would ever be the same again. By the time the first photon pulse left the Blackstar's cannons, the galaxy had already begun to change. The enemy would soon learn the cost of underestimating humanity, and the Blackstar would ensure that lesson was unforgettable. But in this moment, as it glided forward silently, holding the line against impossible odds, the crew felt a quiet pride. They were the ones who had been entrusted with the most powerful weapon ever built. They were the ones who carried the future of humanity in the dark void of space. And as the stars stretched around them, the USS Blackstar entered the battlefield, and nothing would ever withstand its fire. The enemy fleet had faced countless battles, each one teaching them new tactics, new strategies, and new ways to destroy human ships. Their commanders were experienced, their soldiers skilled, and their weapons had torn through countless defenses. But now, when they faced the USS Blackstar, something felt different. There was a stillness in the void of space that didn't belong. Their sensors had detected the massive human ship, and at first, they dismissed it as propaganda, a trick or a decoy. After all, how could a single vessel stand against their entire armada? Yet every scan confirmed the impossible. The Blackstar was real. Its size was enormous, its shields were active, and it moved with a quiet confidence that no one had seen before. From their perspective, this human ship was outnumbered, isolated, and inexperienced. The alien commanders leaned back in their chairs, confident that victory would be quick and decisive. They gave orders to advance, forming tight formations that had proven effective in thousands of battles. Their ships bristled with weapons, lasers humming and energy pulsating through the hulls. They were certain that this human ship, no matter how advanced, would soon be nothing more than floating debris. Confidence filled the enemy ranks. They had underestimated humans before, yes, but never in numbers this great. And this time they told themselves they would finish the job in hours. On board the Blackstar, the captain studied the enemy's approach with quiet intensity. The crew moved efficiently, monitoring readings, adjusting shields, and preparing weapons. They were calm, but their calm was not ignorance. They knew exactly what they faced. The enemy fleet was massive, powerful, and experienced. Any miscalculation could cost lives. Yet there was a quiet determination in the air. A feeling that this ship, built in secret and armed with the most advanced technology humanity could create, could withstand the storm. The Blackstar's shields hummed gently, a reassuring presence that told the crew their defenses were ready. The first attacks came without warning. Thousands of energy pulses and plasma bolts streaked across the void toward the Blackstar. The smaller human ships scattered, trying to avoid the storm of incoming fire while the Blackstar held its ground. The shields absorbed the attacks effortlessly. Light flared across the hull as plasma bolts hit the barrier and disintegrated into nothing. The crew watched the readings in disbelief, though they did not show it. They had trained for this, expected it even, but seeing it happen in real time was astonishing. The enemy's confidence began to falter. Projectiles that had destroyed planets, weapons that had shattered fleets had no effect here. The alien fleet paused, sending out new signals, trying to understand why their attacks were failing. As the alien commanders studied the Blackstar, they realized something terrifying. The ship was not just surviving, it was observing, analyzing, and adapting. Their formations, once perfectly coordinated, were now unsteady. Ships that had once moved in perfect harmony began to drift slightly, trying to avoid the unexpected. Their AI systems, built to anticipate human movements, struggled to keep up with a ship that did not behave predictably. The Blackstar's presence alone was changing the dynamic of the battlefield. Fear, something alien fleets rarely experienced, began to spread. Inside the Blackstar, the captain made small adjustments to the ship's course, positioning it in a way that allowed the crew to monitor every enemy movement. The weapons officers prepared for their first counterstrike, checking the main cannons and pulse lasers. They had trained for this exact moment, and now the time was close. The crew worked silently, understanding the gravity of what was about to happen. One wrong move could escalate the battle, but hesitation was not an option. Every action, every decision had to be precise. The alien fleet, still confident but now uneasy, attempted a more coordinated attack. Small strike teams broke away from the main formation, hoping to flank the Blackstar from different angles. They fired concentrated volleys, trying to overwhelm the ship's shields with sheer numbers. Outside the hull, the energy barrier flared, absorbing the attacks like a living wall. Again, none of the weapons reached the ship itself. The enemy had never seen anything like this. Even their most advanced vessels had been destroyed by human technology in previous skirmishes, but never anything on this scale. And never with such resilience. Across the bridge of the Blackstar, the crew noticed every movement, predicted every pattern, and responded instantly. Targeting systems marked the enemy ships with precision. Calculations were made in milliseconds, determining where each shot would have the most impact. Even the captain, experienced and calm, felt a rush of pride. This was what they had built the ship for, to face overwhelming odds and still emerge victorious. Outside, the enemy fleet continued to fire, but every attack only confirmed the Blackstar's superiority. The aliens, frustrated and confused, tried a new tactic: electronic interference. Pulses designed to scramble the ship's systems were launched at the Blackstar. On many other vessels, this would have caused chaos, navigation errors, weapon malfunctions, communication breakdowns. But the Blackstar's systems, shielded and adaptive, absorbed the interference. Monitors blinked, showing the pulses being neutralized before they could do any real damage. The alien commander's confidence began to crumble. What they had thought was an easy victory was turning into a nightmare. Their soldiers whispered among themselves, realizing that the humans were not only surviving but thriving under pressure. The Blackstar's AI, silent and efficient, provided real-time analysis of every enemy maneuver. It predicted which ships would attempt to retreat, which would circle for another attack, and which were already struggling to maintain formation. This information allowed the captain to make small but decisive moves, positioning the ship for maximum advantage without exposing any weaknesses. The crew worked like a single organism, their focus absolute. There was no panic, no hesitation, only calm determination. Hours into the engagement, the enemy fleet began to divide. They sent in more waves, hoping to force the Blackstar into a mistake. But every wave met the same outcome. Shields held, systems adapted, and the ship moved as if it were aware of every possibility. On board, the crew noticed the subtle shifts in the enemy fleet. Confidence had been replaced by caution. Bravado had been replaced by calculation. Even the bravest alien pilots hesitated before firing. And the Blackstar, silent and imposing, did not need to shout its power. It simply existed, and that was enough. Amid the chaos, a small human frigate sent a message to the Blackstar. "We can't hold them much longer. Support needed." The captain nodded, even though the communication was via text and sensors. He gave a simple order: "Prepare countermeasures. We are here to protect." The Blackstar shifted slightly, positioning itself between the fragile human ships and the incoming fire. For the first time, the enemy fleet saw the Blackstar not just as a participant in battle, but as a shield, a force that would protect the weak. Their hesitation grew. Confusion spread. Fear became more tangible with each passing moment. The alien fleet attempted one last bold maneuver, a concentrated strike aimed directly at the Blackstar, combining thousands of weapons in a single devastating salvo. Their plan was simple: destroy the ship in one blow before it could react. Outside, the projectiles lit up space, streaking toward the massive human vessel. Inside, the crew remained calm. Shields flared brightly, energy flowing to absorb the impact. And when the salvo hit, the result was astonishing. Every projectile disintegrated in the shield's energy field, exploding harmlessly in a cascade of light. The enemy had never witnessed anything like it. Their weapons, the finest ever developed, had failed. Every hope of victory in that moment vanished. Across human fleets watching the battle, awe replaced fear. Pilots and officers who had prepared for the worst were now witnessing the impossible. The Blackstar had survived the first attacks not by chance but by design. Its presence alone inspired courage. Its strength alone changed the course of the engagement. The enemy fleet, once confident and aggressive, now moved cautiously, unsure of how to proceed. The balance of power had shifted dramatically, all before a single counterattack had been launched. The captain looked across the bridge at his crew. They were tense, focused, ready for the moment when the Blackstar would strike. Yet in their eyes he saw understanding. This was more than a battle. This was a demonstration of what humanity had achieved when fear was tempered by intelligence, when innovation met courage, when a single ship could carry the hopes of countless lives. They were about to show the enemy what it meant to face the full might of human engineering, human willpower, and human determination. And as the enemy fleet hesitated, uncertain and afraid, the Blackstar continued to move forward. Its shields glimmered faintly, its systems thrummed with power, and its crew worked as one. The alien commanders exchanged anxious glances, realizing that underestimating the humans had been a catastrophic mistake. They had assumed superiority based on numbers and past victories, but the Blackstar had shattered that assumption. One ship, one crew, one moment of decisive strength had turned the tide of the battlefield. For the first time in this conflict, the enemy faced uncertainty. They had faced humans before, and they had prevailed, or so they thought. But now, staring at the Blackstar, the moment had finally come. After hours of observing, waiting, and withstanding the enemy's relentless attacks, the Blackstar was ready to strike. On the bridge, the crew worked in perfect synchronization, checking weapon systems, aligning targeting arrays, and calculating trajectories. Every sensor, every display, every control panel was alive with data. The alien fleet, confident moments ago, had begun to hesitate, unsure how to proceed. They had tested the Blackstar, launched everything they had, and failed. And now the humans were about to respond. The captain, calm yet decisive, gave the order: engage weapons. Fire when ready. His voice carried through the bridge, steady and commanding. The crew, trained for this exact moment, responded instantly. The main cannons powered up, energy glowing along the massive rails. Pulse lasers charged, humming with anticipation. Missiles armed with advanced guidance systems locked onto targets. The Blackstar, long a silent shadow among the stars, was about to become the force that would change the battle forever. Outside, enemy sensors detected the sudden surge of power. Lights flared across the alien fleet as warning signals were sent back to their commanders. "They are preparing to fire," one officer shouted, disbelief and panic creeping into his voice. The enemy ships tried to disperse, to evade, but it was too late. The Blackstar had already calculated their movements, predicted their maneuvers, and lined up its weapons with terrifying accuracy. Every shot would find a target, and every strike would be decisive. The first round of fire lit up the darkness of space. Rail cannons discharged with unimaginable velocity, streaks of energy slicing through the void. The enemy ships had little time to react. Cruisers that had seemed invincible moments ago were shredded almost instantly. Explosions blossomed across the formation, sending debris flying in all directions. The sheer force of the weaponry was unlike anything the enemy had seen. It was precise, controlled, and devastating. Even smaller vessels, previously considered too fast or agile to hit, were caught in the first wave. Pulse lasers fired in rapid succession, tracking targets with relentless accuracy. Missile systems launched guided projectiles that curved through space with impossible precision, finding weak points in the enemy ships' hulls. In seconds, the battlefield was transformed. What had once been a confident, intimidating armada now resembled a scattered wreck. Smoke and fire trailed through the void as the aliens struggled to comprehend the scale of the Blackstar's attack. Back on the Blackstar, the crew remained calm. They had trained for this moment countless times in simulations, yet nothing compared to the reality of combat. Every explosion, every successful strike, was met with quiet efficiency rather than celebration. There was work to be done, systems to monitor, and the battle was far from over. Yet beneath the focus there was a shared pride, a sense of awe at what their ship could do. This was humanity's finest creation, and it was proving itself in the most extraordinary way imaginable. The alien commanders, however, were overwhelmed. Their most advanced tactics, the strategies that had won countless victories, were failing. Ships that had been considered untouchable were destroyed in moments. Flanking maneuvers were anticipated and countered before they could be executed. Every attempt to regroup was met with devastating fire. The enemy had underestimated the Blackstar's combination of firepower, technology, and human strategy. And now, with their fleet in chaos, they faced the terrifying realization that they were not just fighting a ship, they were fighting a force that could not be stopped. The Blackstar moved with deliberate purpose. It did not rush, it did not panic. It simply advanced through the battlefield, its weapon systems firing in perfect synchronization. Each attack was calculated, each strike measured for maximum effect. Human pilots watching from distant vessels could barely comprehend the speed and precision with which their ship dismantled the enemy formation. It was not just the power of the Blackstar. It was the discipline, intelligence, and courage of the crew that made the attack so effective. Despite the destruction, the crew remained vigilant. Sensors monitored every movement, analyzing the remaining enemy ships for weaknesses. Weapons officers adjusted targeting priorities on the fly, ensuring that no opportunity was missed. Engineers monitored reactor stability, balancing power between shields, engines, and weapons. Every crew member understood their role. Every action mattered. There was no room for error, and yet there was a quiet confidence in their abilities. They knew that as long as they worked together, the Blackstar could withstand anything the enemy could throw at it. The alien fleet, desperate and disorganized, attempted one final coordinated strike. They concentrated fire on a single point in the Blackstar's shields, hoping to break through. For a moment, the tension on the bridge was palpable. Outside, the shields flared brilliantly as the energy of thousands of weapons collided against the barrier. The hull shook, but the shields held. Systems adapted instantly, distributing power and reinforcing weak points. The alien attack meant to cripple the ship had failed completely. Frustration turned to fear, and fear to panic. Commanders shouted orders, but their fleet was already breaking apart. The Blackstar's first counterattack had shattered not just ships, but morale. As the battle raged, the Blackstar's crew began to notice the subtle shifts in the enemy formation. Ships that had been aggressive moments ago were now retreating, attempting to regroup and flee. Others, panicked and confused, collided with one another or ran aground on debris fields. The battlefield, once evenly contested, was now dominated by a single human vessel. The aliens had learned too late that numbers alone could not defeat the combination of human strategy, advanced technology, and relentless determination. The captain observed the battlefield calmly. He knew the attack had been successful, but he also knew that overconfidence could be dangerous. The Blackstar's job was not just to destroy enemy ships, it was to protect human lives, to secure the battlefield, and to ensure the enemy could not regroup for another attack. He issued new orders to maintain position and continue targeting remaining threats with precision. The crew responded instantly, each station operating like a single organism. Every shot fired, every maneuver executed was part of a larger plan. The first wave of enemy survivors attempted to flee, hoping to escape the Blackstar's reach. But the ship was relentless. Its engines propelled it through space with controlled speed, maintaining range while keeping weapons trained on the fleeing ships. Missile systems locked onto targets, pulse lasers tracked movements, and rail cannons fired with devastating effect. One by one, the fleeing ships were eliminated. Space, which had once seemed vast and empty, was now littered with debris from ships that had dared to challenge the humans. Across the battlefield, human vessels cheered quietly, though not loudly, as they watched the Blackstar's display of power. Pilots who had been tense, uncertain, or fearful were now inspired. They saw what could be achieved when courage, technology, and skill worked together. The Blackstar was more than a ship, it was a symbol. It showed that humanity could face overwhelming odds, endure the strongest attacks, and emerge victorious. The morale boost across the human fleet was immediate and profound. Inside the Blackstar, the crew remained focused despite the chaos outside. Engineers monitored shields and reactors, ensuring that every system remained stable. Weapons officers prepared for further attacks, knowing the enemy was not entirely defeated. Communication officers sent updates to nearby human ships, coordinating movements and offering protection where needed. And the captain, ever vigilant, scanned the battlefield, ready to make the next strategic decision. Calm, composed, and precise, he led his crew through the most intense moments they had ever faced. The alien commanders, meanwhile, faced the bitter reality of defeat. Their most skilled pilots were lost, their strategies dismantled, and their confidence destroyed. What had started as an overwhelming attack now ended in chaos and retreat. Even the surviving ships were reluctant to engage further. Fear of the Blackstar, which had been unimaginable hours ago, now dominated every decision. They had encountered humans before, but nothing like this. One ship, one crew, one incredible display of precision and firepower had shattered everything they believed about human capability. As the battlefield settled, the Blackstar drifted silently, its shields still active, its weapons systems ready for any further threats. The first counterattack had been devastating, changing the course of the battle in minutes. Human vessels, inspired and protected, regrouped behind the massive ship. The enemy fleet, scattered and demoralized, hesitated to attack again. And the crew, calm yet aware of the stakes, prepared for the next stage of the engagement. The Blackstar had proven itself in combat, but the war was far from over. And so the USS Blackstar remained at the center of the battlefield, a beacon of power, precision, and human determination. Its first counterattack had left the enemy fleet in ruin, inspired Allied forces, and set the stage for a new era of space warfare. For the humans, it was proof that even against overwhelming odds, courage, teamwork, and advanced technology could achieve the impossible. For the enemy, it was a terrifying lesson they would never forget. And for the crew of the Blackstar, it was only the beginning of a battle that would be rare. The battlefield had shifted dramatically. The alien fleet, once confident and aggressive, was now scattered and unsure. Their ships, damaged and shaken by the Blackstar's devastating counterattack, moved hesitantly, trying to regroup. Communications between their commanders were tense and filled with frustration. They had faced humans before, but nothing like this. One ship alone, massive, silent, and precise, had turned the tide of the engagement in minutes. And yet, for the crew of the Blackstar, the battle was far from over. Every sensor, every display, and every system was active, scanning for the next threat. The captain knew that this was the critical moment, the turning point of the battle. Allied human ships, which had previously been scattered and struggling under enemy fire, were now attempting to regroup. Many had taken damage and were vulnerable. Smaller frigates and fighters moved cautiously, trying to avoid debris and enemy remnants. From their perspective, the Blackstar was more than just a ship. It was a guardian. Its presence alone gave them courage. They could follow behind it, maneuvering with confidence, knowing that the massive human warship could absorb attacks that would have destroyed them instantly. And yet the captain remained focused. Protecting these vulnerable ships was as important as destroying the enemy. The alien commanders, desperate to salvage the battle, attempted a bold maneuver. They sent small strike teams, faster and more maneuverable than their main fleet, to bypass the Blackstar and attack the exposed human ships. Their plan was simple. If they could destroy the weaker vessels, the humans would lose morale, and the Blackstar would be forced to defend instead of attacking. But the Blackstar was ready. Sensors detected the incoming strike teams before they were even visible. Targeting systems locked onto the enemy ships, and the weapons officers prepared for a defensive strike. The crew trained for this scenario was calm and efficient, knowing that every action could save countless lives. When the first enemy ship emerged from behind a debris field, it fired immediately, aiming at a small human frigate attempting to retreat. But before the projectile could reach its target, the Blackstar's shields flared brilliantly, absorbing the energy and neutralizing the threat. Simultaneously, rail cannons fired, slicing through the void with incredible precision. The alien ship was destroyed in an instant, leaving the remaining strike team in shock. They realized that the Blackstar was not just powerful. It was everywhere at once, predicting movements and countering threats before they could even be executed. The crew worked in perfect coordination. Weapons officers communicated silently with targeting systems. Engineers monitored shields and reactors, and the navigation team positioned the ship to maximize both offense and defense. Every action was deliberate, calculated, and precise. The Blackstar was no longer just a participant in the battle. It had become the center of it. Its presence dictated the flow of combat, forcing the enemy to react rather than act. This shift in control was critical. The captain understood that victory depended not just on firepower, but on maintaining dominance of the battlefield. The alien fleet, now shaken and confused, attempted to regroup once more. Larger ships, previously damaged, tried to maneuver into better positions. Missiles and energy beams were launched, but the Blackstar anticipated every move. Shields absorbed attack after attack, while the ship's own weapons continued to eliminate threats with surgical precision. One by one, enemy ships were neutralized. Explosions lit up space, a violent display of fire and debris. Yet the Blackstar remained unharmed, moving gracefully through the chaos, its crew calm and focused. Amid the battle, a small human frigate sent a distress signal. "We are surrounded. Request immediate support." The message reached the Blackstar instantly. The captain gave a measured command. Redirect power to shields and support the frigate. Engage any threats in its path. The ship shifted slightly, positioning itself between the vulnerable vessel and the incoming enemy forces. As the Blackstar moved into position, it absorbed the enemy fire, protecting the human ship behind it. The shields glowed brightly as projectiles and energy pulses collided with them and disintegrated. The smaller ship, once at risk of destruction, was now safe to retreat. The sight of the Blackstar protecting Allied vessels inspired courage across the human fleet. Pilots who had been hesitant now executed daring maneuvers, taking advantage of the enemy's confusion. Human frigates moved in coordinated formations, striking weak points in enemy defenses while remaining protected by the Blackstar's presence. Fighters darted in and out of the battlefield, using speed and agility to harass the remaining alien ships. Every action was amplified by the knowledge that the Blackstar was at the center, shielding them, guiding them, and ensuring their survival. Meanwhile, the alien commanders grew increasingly desperate. Their best ships were gone, their attack strategies had failed, and morale was collapsing. Panic spread among their crews. Confused signals were sent, orders contradicted, and formations broke apart. What had begun as a confident, aggressive assault had turned into a chaotic retreat. The Blackstar had not just destroyed ships, it had destroyed the enemy's confidence. Fear replaced arrogance, hesitation replaced decisiveness, and chaos replaced order. For the first time, the alien commanders faced the reality that they might lose this battle, despite their superior numbers and experience. Inside the Blackstar, the crew continued their work with unshakable focus. Engineers rerouted power to reinforce shields while keeping weapons fully operational. Weapons officers tracked targets across the battlefield, prioritizing threats and calculating optimal firing solutions. Navigation adjusted the ship's position continuously, maintaining an ideal line between Allied ships and enemy fire. Communication officers relayed instructions to nearby human vessels, coordinating attacks and defenses seamlessly. The ship operated like a single intelligent organism, every part contributing to the safety and success of the mission. The turning point became more evident as the remaining alien ships attempted to flee. Smaller vessels moved in panic. Larger ships tried to regroup, but the Blackstar was always one step ahead. Rail cannons fired with unerring accuracy, eliminating targets before they could escape. Pulse lasers tracked evasive maneuvers and corrected in real time, ensuring destruction of even the fastest ships. Missile systems, guided by the ship's advanced AI, intercepted enemy escape attempts, leaving no safe path. The battlefield was now dominated entirely by the Blackstar's presence and human strategy. Allied ships, inspired by the Blackstar's dominance, took more calculated risks. Human fighters launched hit-and-run attacks on vulnerable enemy ships, harassing them and buying time for damaged vessels to retreat. Frigates provided support, using coordinated maneuvers to strike weak points while remaining shielded by the Blackstar. The human fleet, once fragmented and hesitant, now moved with confidence. The difference was clear. One ship had changed the entire dynamic of the battle, transforming fear into courage and chaos into strategy. The alien commanders, desperate to regain control, attempted another tactic: direct engagement with the Blackstar itself. They focused their remaining firepower on a single point, hoping to breach the shields and disable the ship. But the Blackstar anticipated the attack instantly. Shields flared, absorbing the concentrated energy, while weapon systems simultaneously targeted every approaching threat. One by one, the attacking ships were neutralized. Their plan failed spectacularly. Confidence, already shattered, now gave way to despair. The aliens realized they could not win this engagement, at least not against the Blackstar. The captain observed the battlefield calmly. He knew that victory was within reach, but he also knew the importance of restraint. The Blackstar was powerful, yes, but its role extended beyond destruction. Protecting human lives, inspiring Allied forces, and controlling the battlefield were just as important. He gave orders to maintain position, continue monitoring threats, and support any vulnerable ships. The crew responded with quiet efficiency, understanding that their actions were saving lives and ensuring that the humans would remain strong and coordinated. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. The Blackstar remained at the center of the battlefield, shielding allies, eliminating threats, and asserting dominance. Debris from destroyed enemy ships floated across space, silent reminders of the cost of underestimating humanity. The human fleet, once scattered and unsure, now moved with confidence and coordination, ready to capitalize on the advantage created by the Blackstar. And the enemy fleet, fragmented and demoralized, could only retreat and regroup, knowing that their strength had been decisively broken. Even as the Blackstar held its position, the crew remained vigilant. Sensors scanned the horizon for any sign of returning threats. Engineers ensured that systems were stable, weapons were ready, and shields were reinforced. Communication officers maintained contact with Allied ships, coordinating movements and providing updates. And the captain, ever aware of the stakes, continued to monitor every detail, prepared to make decisions that could save countless lives. In this moment, the ship was not just a weapon, it was a guardian, a symbol of human ingenuity, and a beacon of hope in the chaos of battle. The turning point had been reached. The alien fleet, once confident and threatening, was now in. The battlefield was quiet now, though not in the way calm usually feels. Silence hung heavy in space, broken only by the occasional flare of distant explosions or the hum of the USS Blackstar's engines. The enemy fleet, once vast and confident, had been shattered and scattered. Their ships, battered and demoralized, struggled to regroup. Communications crackled with confusion and fear, officers shouting contradictory orders as panic spread through the ranks. Even the bravest among them began to hesitate, realizing that their numbers and experience could not overcome the human ship at the center of their despair. Inside the Blackstar, the crew remained vigilant. They had faced waves of attacks, withstood countless strikes, and protected their allies. Every system was operational, every weapon ready, and every member of the crew focused. The captain studied the battlefield carefully. watching the remnants of the enemy fleet as they attempted to reorganize. He knew that this was the final moment, the last stand before the enemy either retreated or made one desperate all-out assault. One mistake here could be catastrophic, and then it came. From the distance, the enemy assembled every remaining ship into a massive formation. It was their final gamble. Every vessel they had left, every weapon they could fire, was directed toward the Blackstar. Their strategy was simple: concentrate fire, overwhelm the massive ship, and finally destroy it. The alien commanders believed this would turn the tide. They had fought countless wars and believed in their superior numbers. Yet they had forgotten one thing. The Blackstar was not just a ship. It was the culmination of human ingenuity, resilience, and determination. The crew felt the tension but did not panic. Shields hummed with reinforced energy. Engines roared softly as the ship adjusted its position, and weapon systems powered up for the inevitable assault. The captain issued clear, precise commands. Prepare all weapons. Prioritize shield integrity. Focus fire on their concentrated formations. Every officer and crew member understood the stakes. They were not only fighting for survival, they were fighting to end the enemy's threat once and for all. The first wave of the final attack hit the Blackstar with terrifying intensity. Thousands of projectiles and energy pulses collided with the shields, creating brilliant flashes of light that illuminated the void. The hull shuddered, alarms blared, and the vibrations ran through the ship. But the shields held. They bent, absorbed, and redirected the energy, leaving the Blackstar intact. The enemy, seeing their attack fail, grew frantic. Orders became chaotic as commanders tried desperately to salvage the assault. But it was too late. The Blackstar had already anticipated their moves. Without hesitation, the captain ordered a counterstrike. The ship's weapons powered up fully. Rail cannons glowed as energy built within them. Pulse lasers hummed in rapid succession, and missile systems locked onto every viable target. When the order was given, the Blackstar unleashed its power. The first volleys tore through enemy lines. Ships that had seemed indestructible moments ago were obliterated instantly. Explosions lit the battlefield like miniature suns, scattering debris and sending shockwaves through the remaining vessels. The enemy's final gamble was failing spectacularly. Even the alien commanders, desperate and skilled, could not react fast enough. The Blackstar's targeting systems, powered by advanced AI and human oversight, tracked every movement with lethal precision. Missiles intercepted evasive maneuvers. Lasers corrected mid-flight to hit agile ships, and rail cannons shredded larger vessels. Each strike was deliberate, calculated, and devastating. The battlefield, once dominated by fear and confusion, was now a display of absolute human control and power. Amid the chaos, the Blackstar also moved strategically. It did not rush forward recklessly, nor did it stand still. Navigation adjusted constantly, maintaining a position that protected Allied ships while maximizing offensive capability. Smaller human frigates and fighters, inspired by the Blackstar's dominance, moved boldly through the battlefield, striking weakened enemies and supporting one another. Their morale, once fragile under pressure, now soared. The Blackstar's actions had transformed fear into courage, panic into coordination, and chaos into order. The alien fleet, now desperate, attempted another tactic. A concentrated assault targeted a single point in the Blackstar's shields, hoping to finally breach the massive barrier. Hundreds of projectiles and energy pulses converged, creating an enormous burst of light. The shields absorbed the impact, bending and reinforcing at the same time, protecting the ship entirely. The enemy could not comprehend what they were witnessing. Their most powerful strike had failed, leaving them vulnerable and exposed. Frustration turned to panic, and panic quickly became outright fear. The Blackstar, sensing the opportunity, advanced with precision. Every weapon fired simultaneously, annihilating enemy formations in moments. Rail cannons tore ships apart. Missiles guided themselves through tight, evasive maneuvers, and pulse lasers eliminated even the fastest targets. The destruction was swift, surgical, and terrifying. In minutes, what had been the enemy's final stand was reduced to scattered remnants struggling to escape. The Blackstar had not only survived the assault, it had ended it decisively. Inside the ship, the crew remained focused. Engineers monitored reactors and shields, ensuring continued stability under immense pressure. Weapons officers recalibrated systems in real time, tracking fleeing targets and remaining threats. The captain continued to study the battlefield, making strategic decisions to maintain dominance while protecting allies. Every crew member understood that their actions mattered, not just for themselves, but for the countless lives depending on them across the human fleet. As the last waves of enemy ships attempted to flee, the Blackstar's weapon systems pursued them relentlessly. Rail cannons and pulse lasers tracked every movement, while missiles intercepted escape attempts. Ships that had once been proud and confident were now destroyed or scattered, leaving the battlefield in the control of humanity. The enemy, defeated and demoralized, could no longer mount a coordinated attack. They had gambled everything on one final stand, and lost. Allied human ships, inspired by the Blackstar's dominance, moved with confidence. Pilots executed daring maneuvers, taking advantage of the enemy's disarray. Frigates moved in tight formation, supporting one another while striking vulnerable targets. The Blackstar's presence allowed them to act boldly, knowing that the massive ship could absorb attacks that would have destroyed them instantly. For the first time in the battle, humans were not only surviving, they were in control. The final stand of the enemy fleet collapsed completely. Larger vessels attempted to escape, but the Blackstar's pursuit and precision fire ensured that few survived. Smaller ships scattered, losing coordination and becoming easy targets. Explosions and debris filled the battlefield, silent witnesses to the power of the human vessel at the center. Across the human fleet, morale soared. The Blackstar had not just protected them. It had demonstrated the full extent of human capability, courage, and determination. The captain, watching the battlefield, finally allowed a moment of satisfaction, not in celebration but in understanding. The final stand of the enemy had been broken. Lives had been saved, ships protected, and the enemy fleet reduced to fragments. The Blackstar had done what it was designed to do. It had turned overwhelming odds into a decisive victory. And yet the crew remained vigilant. They knew that in war, even a victory must be secured, and the possibility of returning threats could never be ignored. Inside the ship, engineers continued monitoring systems, ensuring no damage had compromised critical operations. Weapons officers recalibrated targeting arrays, ready for any final threats. Navigation remained precise, keeping the Blackstar in an optimal position, and the captain, ever aware of the importance of leadership, ensured communication lines remained open with Allied ships, coordinating movements and ensuring safety. The Blackstar was not just a weapon, it was a command center, a shield, and a beacon of hope. The aftermath of the final stand was clear across the battlefield. Enemy ships were destroyed, scattered, or fleeing in disarray. Allied ships moved confidently, regrouping and tending to damaged vessels. The Blackstar remained at the center, unscathed, its shield still active, its weapons ready, and its crew vigilant. The destruction and chaos had passed, but the lesson was clear. Humanity's resolve, skill, and technology were unmatched when combined. The Blackstar had proven that a single ship, crewed by disciplined, courageous humans, could turn the tide of a battle, defeat overwhelming odds, and protect countless lives. And so, as the Blackstar continued to drift through space, its presence alone commanding respect, the battlefield was transformed. The enemy fleet was no longer a threat, scattered and demoralized. Allied ships were safe and inspired, moving with coordination and confidence. And the crew, calm yet alert, prepared for whatever might come next. The Blackstar had shown the full power of humanity in its final stand, and the galaxy would never forget it. The battlefield had finally fallen silent. The alien fleet, once a looming threat, was scattered and defeated. The debris of destroyed ships floated through the void, a stark reminder of the battle that had just taken place. Fires still glimmered across some of the wreckage, slowly fading into the darkness of space. But at the center of it all, the USS Blackstar remained intact, its shield still shimmering faintly, its systems fully operational, and its crew alert yet calm. They had survived the impossible, protected their allies, and defeated an enemy that had once seemed unstoppable. Inside the Blackstar, the crew began the careful process of assessing the aftermath. Engineers ran diagnostic checks on the ship's systems, ensuring that shields, engines, and weapons were fully functional. Every display, every monitor, every sensor was checked for damage, and every minor issue was immediately addressed. The ship itself had taken the brunt of the attacks, but it had held. Its armor, its shields, and the skill of the crew had combined to make it nearly invincible. Yet despite the relief, there was no celebration. The crew understood the responsibility that came with their victory. Humanity had been protected, and now it was their duty to secure the area and ensure no threat could rise again. Across the battlefield, human ships moved carefully, salvaging damaged vessels and assisting the wounded. The smaller frigates and fighters, once scattered and uncertain, now operated with confidence and coordination. Their morale was high, inspired by what they had witnessed. The Blackstar had not only survived, it had led, shielded, and commanded the battlefield. Its actions had saved countless lives and allowed human forces to regroup and recover. Pilots, officers, and crews alike whispered among themselves, awed by the performance of the massive ship and the discipline of its crew. The alien fleet, meanwhile, was in disarray. Surviving ships attempted to retreat, their systems damaged, their crews shaken, and their confidence destroyed. They had underestimated humanity, and the cost had been catastrophic. For the first time, the enemy realized that they were facing not just technology or firepower, but determination, courage, and intelligence that could not be measured in numbers alone. Their retreat was slow and chaotic, and their commanders struggled to maintain control. The Blackstar, however, did not pursue recklessly. It monitored the retreat, ensuring that no group could return for another attack. But it allowed the defeated fleet to leave the immediate battlefield. Humanity had won decisively, and the ship's role now was to maintain order and ensure the safety of human forces. The captain of the Blackstar looked out over the battlefield from the bridge. The view was a mix of destruction and victory. Broken ships, debris, and fire contrasted with the still-standing human vessels, intact and operational. Allied crews were safe. Enemy forces were neutralized, and the Blackstar had proven itself as the pinnacle of human engineering and strategy. Yet the captain remained thoughtful. He knew that every battle was only part of a larger war. Victory here did not mean the end of the threat, and the lessons learned today would shape future encounters. Communication officers worked tirelessly to coordinate with all human forces in the sector. Updates were sent, ships were guided to safe zones, and status reports were gathered. Every ship that had survived the battle was accounted for, and assistance was dispatched where needed. The Blackstar's presence alone allowed these operations to proceed smoothly. Smaller ships followed its lead, moving with confidence and purpose. The crew understood that the role of the Blackstar extended beyond combat. It was a command center, a protector, and a symbol of hope. Meanwhile, engineers continued their work, repairing minor damage to the ship and ensuring that every system was ready for potential future engagements. Shields were recalibrated, energy output stabilized, and weapon systems tested. The Blackstar had endured the most intense assault imaginable, and yet it remained fully operational. The crew's training, skill, and coordination had ensured that no single mistake could compromise the ship. Their efficiency and dedication reflected not just personal excellence, but the combined effort of countless individuals who had designed, built, and maintained the vessel. Allied human crews moved closer to the Blackstar, seeking guidance and protection. Ships that had once been hesitant now followed closely, inspired by the ship's strength and precision. Pilots who had feared the enemy were now confident in their maneuvers, relying on the Blackstar to guide them and shield them from danger. Communication between ships was steady and organized, with the Blackstar coordinating movements and ensuring that no vessel was left vulnerable. Its presence transformed a previously chaotic situation into an organized recovery and stabilization operation. The alien fleet, now far from the battlefield, struggled to understand the defeat. They had expected to overwhelm humanity with superior numbers and firepower, yet a single ship had shattered their plans entirely. Their losses were significant, their morale shattered, and their pride destroyed. For the first time, they understood that humanity's strength was not only in technology but in creativity, courage, and the ability to adapt. They would remember the Blackstar and its crew, knowing that no fleet, no matter how advanced, could underestimate the humans again. Back aboard the Blackstar, the crew began to reflect quietly on the battle. They had faced overwhelming odds, endured relentless attacks, and emerged victorious. Lives had been saved, human forces had been protected, and the enemy had been decisively defeated. Yet the crew understood that their role was ongoing. Training would continue, systems would be upgraded, and vigilance would remain constant. The Blackstar was more than a ship. It was a symbol of human potential, and its legacy depended on continuous dedication and preparation. The captain addressed the crew in a calm but firm voice. "We have done what we were built to do. We have protected our people, defeated the enemy, and ensured the safety of our allies. But our duty does not end here. We must remain vigilant, continue to learn, and prepare for whatever may come next. Today, humanity has proven its strength, and the Blackstar has proven its value. Remember this moment, but know that our work continues." The crew nodded, understanding the weight of the words. They had achieved the impossible, yet they knew that future challenges awaited. Across human territory, news of the battle spread quickly. Commanders, pilots, and civilians alike marveled at the Blackstar's performance. Reports detailed the ship's incredible defensive capabilities, its precise offensive strikes, and its role in protecting human forces. Morale soared. Humanity had witnessed the power of one vessel, expertly operated by a dedicated crew, and realized what could be achieved when courage, strategy, and technology worked together. The Blackstar became a symbol not just of military might, but of hope, resilience, and human ingenuity. The victory also inspired innovation and development. Scientists and engineers studied the Blackstar's design, seeking ways to replicate its effectiveness and learn from the crew's strategies. Pilots and officers trained to emulate the coordination and efficiency observed during the battle. The lessons learned from this engagement would shape the future of human defense, ensuring that the Blackstar's legacy extended far beyond a single encounter. Its presence had changed the way humanity approached space warfare, inspiring a generation of leaders, strategists, and innovators. The alien fleet, in retreat, became a cautionary tale. Their arrogance, overconfidence, and underestimation of humanity had cost them dearly. The Blackstar had demonstrated that no amount of power could overcome preparation, intelligence, and courage. Survivors would return to their home systems, carrying the knowledge that humans were not to be underestimated, and that one vessel could change the course of a battle and, potentially, a war. The legacy of the Blackstar would follow them, creating fear and respect wherever they traveled. For the crew of the Blackstar, the aftermath of the battle was a mix of relief, pride, and responsibility. They had survived the impossible, saved countless lives, and proven the strength of humanity. Yet they also knew that vigilance was essential. Space was vast, threats were many, and humanity's future depended on preparation, skill, and courage. The Blackstar was ready. Its systems were operational, its weapons fully charged, and its shields at maximum strength. And its crew, disciplined, trained, and focused, stood ready for whatever challenge might come next. As the ship moved through the remnants of the battlefield, the captain reflected on what had been accomplished. This was more than a victory. It was a testament to human ingenuity, teamwork, and courage. The Blackstar had changed the course of the battle, saved countless lives, and inspired hope across the fleet. Its legacy would not be forgotten. It would be remembered as the ship that faced the impossible, endured relentless attacks, and emerged victorious, an enduring symbol of humanity's power and resilience. The human fleet gradually regrouped around the Blackstar. Ships that had been damaged were repaired or guided to safe zones. Pilots shared their experiences, learning from the strategies and precision of the Blackstar's crew. Coordination improved, morale soared, and the entire fleet moved with confidence. The ship had done more than fight. It had taught, guided, and inspired. Its presence was a reminder that even in the darkest moments humanity could endure, fight back, and triumph.